Hey y'all, welcome to Peyton Energetics. I'm Peyton, and in today's video, we're going to be answering the question, what is a lightworker? Now, if you are part of the spiritual community, you know that this is one of our favorite words. We talk about lightworkers all the time, but not everyone is totally sure what a lightworker is. So I thought in today's video, we would take a look at that and explore what makes someone a lightworker. And something that goes along with this is we have a little tendency in the spiritual community to confuse the term lightworker with our other favorite term, which is the term starseed. The term starseed is fairly new compared to the term lightworker. We've been talking about it in the spiritual community only for about the past 3 or 4 years. And it has absolutely exploded in our spiritual pop culture. But one thing that has also happened along with the increasing popularity of these terms is we tend to jumble the definitions and think that starseeds and lightworkers are the same thing, when really the terms are quite different. Although there is a lot of overlap between them, which is where you can see that confusion creeping in. So today we're going to take a look at what a lightworker is, how lightworkers differ from starseeds, and just in general, sort out some of the confusion. Now, let's start off by talking about lightworkers, because this is the term that is most common in the spiritual community. It is our go-to. We talk about lightworkers constantly, and this is a term that has been around longer. So what is a lightworker? Well, when we talk about someone being a lightworker or describe ourselves as a lightworker, we're usually referring to two general concepts. The first thing when we talk about a lightworker is that we are generally referring to someone who has had a spiritual awakening. So this is a term that we sometimes start to use on anyone who is spiritually awake, who has gone through their spiritual awakening process. So sometimes we use the term lightworker to mean someone who is awake. And that is definitely a big part of what we generally mean when we call someone a lightworker. But there's also a second part of the definition. And so when we talk about lightworkers, not only are we referring to someone who is spiritually awake, but we tend to also be referring to someone who has made a conscious choice to be of service in the world. So service and commitment to healing the world, bringing more love and light to the world are big parts of what it means to be a light worker. Now, this concept of service for light workers covers a lot of ground. So we don't mean that to be a light worker, you have to quit your 9-to-5 job. That's not what we're talking about. So when we refer to being of service, this is something that kind of naturally goes hand in hand with the spiritual awakening process. It's kind of hard to separate the two, because as you start to become more conscious, more spiritually awake, there is a natural pull toward being of service. And one of the reasons for that is that as we go through our spiritual awakening, we realize we are all one. So we would never do anything to harm others or do anything that would be detrimental to others, because we realize we are one human collective. We are one consciousness at heart. So as we go through our spiritual awakening, most of us start to get pulled to be of service in the world. And that can look many different ways. Some people do go all in and dedicate their careers or switch careers and start to do more healing work, more service work, more being a humanitarian in the world. So that is definitely one thing that causes us to call someone a light worker. But it doesn't have to look like that. Light workers can also be people who are just of service to their family, who are of service to their community, and who just do it whenever they have time. So this isn't something that to be a light worker, you have to 24/7 be in service, but making the movement to be of more service in your life is generally what we mean when we refer to someone as a light worker. So again, this doesn't have to mean you quit your job and practice Reiki all the time. It can just mean that you are of service however you can be in your daily life. So being a light worker doesn't mean you have to quit the 9 to 5. You can do your mainstream work, your mainstream career, and be of service on the weekends in your spare time. But taking efforts to serve humanity, to be of healing and service in the world, is a huge part of what we mean when we refer to someone as a light worker. Now, there's something else that kind of goes along with our definition of light worker. And one other thing that you will notice about most light workers is they have a mission, a personal mission to be a source of love in the world. And oftentimes this goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about being of service. But you will notice with many light workers, probably the vast majority, that they are very personally committed to being a source of love in the world. So your average light worker is not someone who is going to be into the gossip and the drama that is so tempting for so many humans. Your light worker is going to tend to be that person that you know who wants to always keep the vibes high, who is a source of positivity and encouragement to everyone they come in contact with. So this is another thing that tends to be one of the main characteristics of light workers, is they are just personally committed to helping better everyone, to being a source of healing and love in the world. So that is kind of the other thing that really goes hand in hand with our definition of a light worker. So this is generally what we are talking about when we refer to someone as a light worker, is these 2 or 3 things are what define most light workers. Now, some other things you may notice about light workers, if you are starting to resonate with this definition and think that you might be a light worker yourself, there are a couple other little interesting traits that we see in a lot of light workers. And one of those is light workers tend to be a magnet to people who need healing. This may be physical healing if the light worker is practicing a healing modality, or this may just be that the light worker is the person that everyone goes to with their problems. So if you are the person in your family, your friend group, your community, who everyone is drawn to when they need help, that is something that is very common with light workers, because light workers exude this positivity, this optimism. They are the uplifters and cheerleaders of everyone, and people love them for it. And because of that, they find that they tend to attract everyone who needs healing. This is something that goes with being a light worker, is that light workers are natural healers. So if you are that person who can't stand in line at the grocery store without someone telling you their entire life story, that is a great sign that you may be a light worker. Because light workers, just by sharing their love and light in the world, everyone wants to be with them. Everyone wants to be healed by them, even if they don't know what they're doing. So this is a great, very common characteristic of light workers, is that they tend to be a magnet to anyone who needs healing, needs help, or just needs support and upliftment. That is who a light worker is at heart. And the other thing that is super common in light workers that may help you just identify if you are one, is that light workers tend to be very positive and uplifting almost all the time. So that light worker in your life is the person who is always in a good mood, always wants to cheer up anyone who is having a rough time. They tend to be incredibly filled with love and light almost all the time. And that is such a rare jewel in our world right now. So if this is something that resonates with you, it may help you figure out if you are a light worker too. And finally, what goes hand in hand with that beautiful light worker optimism is that they tend to have very little interest in anything negative. So the light worker in your life is going to be that person who wants everyone to be happy, who wants to cheer up whoever is sad around them. And they tend not to be into anything negative. So your typical light worker is probably not going to be down to watch the depressing movies or the violent movies, or to follow on social media, online, anyone who is a voice of negativity, a voice of separation. So lightworkers like to bring the kumbaya. They like everyone to be happy, and they are the ones working to make that happen. So this is what we are generally talking about when we refer to lightworkers, is this little kind of subset of characteristics, referring to someone who is spiritually awake, who is dedicating themselves in some way, however they can, to being of service in the world, someone who is a source of love and light pretty much to everyone around them, and someone who tends to attract people who need healing. Because again, light workers are here to heal the planet, to raise the vibration of the planet. So they take their job very seriously. Now, we tend to confuse light workers with another one of our favorite words in the spiritual community, and that is the term starseed. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, the word starseed is a little newer. It has come into our spiritual pop culture just over the past couple of years, but it has absolutely exploded in popularity. So we have a little tendency in the spiritual community to assume that lightworkers and starseeds are the same thing. So we like to jumble the definitions, but they actually refer to very different things. So let's just take a quick look at what a starseed is and how a starseed differs from a lightworker. Now, when we use the term starseed, what we are referring to is the origin of someone's soul. So the guides like to say, and if y'all have watched any of my videos, you know that I'm a Pleiadian channel. So the Pleiadians like to say that a starseed is someone whose soul originates from another star system. So what this means is that starseeds have a soul from another star system. And starseeds have, of course, started to incarnate on the planet to help support it through the ascension process. So basically, when you boil this down, starseeds are humans who have a lot more galactic energy than the average human. So starseeds have a very different frequency and a very different vibration than your average human, than the average human population. So starseeds have an energy about them that feels very different than your average person. And so starseeds are here to anchor their galactic energy into the planetary grid system. So kind of in a similar way that light workers are always drawn to be of service, starseeds, just by being here on the planet, are of service because their job is to anchor their galactic frequency into the planetary grid system. So essentially what this means is starseeds are born onto this planet with the energy of a very advanced, very evolved galactic civilization. And just by walking around, living their daily life, they are downloading their vibration, which sometimes we call our frequency, into the Earth grid system. And what that does is it raises the vibration of the entire planet. So starseeds are here to help Earth raise its frequency. This is how they support the ascension process. So when we call someone a starseed, we're referring to the origin of their soul. So you can see that this is a different definition than what we have for a light worker. So light worker tends to refer to someone who is spiritually awake and has made the choice consciously to be of service. Whereas when we say the word starseed, we're referring to the origin of someone's soul, the frequency of their soul. So you can be both a light worker and a starseed, but you don't have to be. So let's walk through some examples and just see how this shakes out. So say you have someone who is a starseed because they come from a galactic civilization. They have a lot of galactic energy, but they haven't woken up yet. In that case, you have someone who is a starseed, but not a light worker because they haven't made that conscious decision yet to be of service, to be a source of love in the world. So that's how you can be a starseed, but not a light worker. Now, on the other hand, you can have a starseed who has gone through their spiritual awakening and started to devote themselves to being a source of love in the world, to be of service to the entire collective. In that situation, you have someone who is both a starseed and a light worker. Now, you can also have someone who is what we refer to in the spiritual community as an earth soul, someone who has had all of their incarnations in the earth plane. And if that person goes through their spiritual awakening and starts to step more into a life of service, of helping, of healing, we would have someone who is a light worker, but not a starseed, because their soul originates from the earth plane. And finally, you can have people who are none of these. So you can have people who are earth souls who have not had their awakening. And so these would be neither a light worker nor a starseed. So these two definitions can definitely overlap. Especially, we see a lot of light workers who are also starseeds, but they don't mean the same thing. So you can see from these examples how we have gotten a little confused in our definitions and started to assume that if you are one, a light worker or a starseed, you must be both. And that's not the case. So we can see every combination of these categories. And of course, we also have much of our world that is neither. So we do have a very large community of starseeds on the planet right now and a huge number of light workers, but we are still, unfortunately, the minority. But this is changing as we move through the ascension process, as we are going through a mass awakening on the planet right now. So let me know in the comments below, do you resonate as being a light worker, a starseed, or both? Because if you don't resonate with either of these, you're probably not watching this video to begin with. So let me know in the comments below which one you resonate with. And while you're down there, don't forget, hit the subscribe button and the like button if you haven't done that yet. I'll see you soon. Bye.